Hello and welcome. Today we are honored to introduce Dr. Heather Drummond, a seasoned clinical psychologist with nearly 3 decades of experience. Specializing in evidence-based integrated psychotherapy, Dr. Drummond holds a doctoral and master's degree in counseling psychology and is licensed in Ontario, Alberta, and British Columbia. Her approach blends care and compassion with techniques like EFT, CBT, and trauma therapy. Dr. Drummond believes in fostering mental health by considering the mind, body, and spirit. Her core philosophy is that you are not broken, you are in transition and learning. We are thrilled to have her with us today. Please welcome Dr. Heather Drummond.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This is such an honor to be invited.
Okay, so we will first start, Dr. Drummond, with the line that it is under your email and everything. Every email we exchanged so far, the good life is a process, not a destination.
Yes.
Fascinating. So, in your experience, how can individuals pursue professional success without compromising their mental health and wellness?
Professional success really needs to be defined first for each individual person, because there's so many societal expectations, familial expectations of us, and then we sometimes just adopt those as those of my shoulds in life. So I think that the first thing people need to do is really decide for themselves, what is their why? Why am I in this industry? Why am I pursuing it in this way? And really kind of examine some of their shoulds. Shoulds are not a bad thing. They're only difficult if we don't examine them. So really thinking like, I should do this and I should do that. We just need to know why. Is that our should, or is that from our mom or our dad or our society or our faith? There's a lot of messages that come from society on what we should do. The shoulds that are not our own or that we haven't examined are really hard to do because it doesn't align with us. So if you want to have a little bit easier path, I'm just saying a little bit easier path to success, it's really important to be aligned with your shoulds. They still could be aligned with your society, with your culture, with your religion, with your family culture, but they just need to have some buy-in that they're also your shoulds and they fit for your goals. And so that's where I would say that in terms of professional success, you got to know your why. Why am I doing this? Because it is hard. School, training, putting yourself out there, networking, it is hard. So if at least if it's your why and your own should, then it makes it just a little easier. So that's where I would start. Why am I doing this?
Yeah, that's a fascinating point, because if why is not clear, then we do not know where we are going. The journey becomes really a tiresome one.
It does.
So, and what is the connection in relation to that? The second question is kind of an extension of the first question. How do you see the connection between mindfulness and prosperity to make the question very relatable? How does practicing mindfulness contribute to both personal prosperity and healthier lifestyle? Please.
Absolutely. Well, mindfulness in itself is helping you develop awareness. There's so much stimulus that people deal with day in day, like the sounds, sights, information from society, and sometimes it just goes unconscious and we don't really pay attention. We don't pay attention to our body signs. We don't pay attention to our emotional signs. We just don't pay attention because we just do the things we're supposed to do in life. Mindfulness brings us back into this moment, right here, right now. And your brain loves it, especially if you're in a safe moment. Your brain loves to feel safe. It doesn't have to feel so hyper vigilant. So mindfulness, in a nutshell, is bringing your mind where your body is over and over and over again, so that our brain can develop that ability to switch between what's called our default network, future or past, and bringing it into this direct experiencing moment. So with practicing mindfulness, there's kind of two ways to think about it. There's like when you actually sit down and practice meditation, and I am a meditation teacher, and some days doing a meditation longer than 10 minutes is painful. Some days I could do a meditation for 40 minutes. It really depends, but that's like the gym. That's like where you're really practicing switching the networks in your brain. So that's like the going to the gym. But mindfulness also can be just in your daily life, like something as mundane as doing your dishes, just being in the moment, like the feel of the dishwasher, like the scent of the bubbles, like being in that moment over and over again. Just when your mind wanders, you bring it back into what you're directly experiencing. This allows us to be a little more aware of our body signs, our emotional signs, our that there are moments of peace in our brain, that because sometimes we get into such a busy life and it just feels like it does feel busy because we're more in our default network, which is more to the future or more to the past. So we're keeping the mind busy all the time. So mindfulness helps us really get to know ourselves, kind of what our tells are, like why we feel the way we do in certain moments, or what we're feeling in certain moments, what we're feeling in the body in certain moments. So it is such a great way to get your mind where your body is in this moment.
Fascinating. Being in the moment. That's the like
Oh,
that's one of the core thing that I have got from. And
absolutely.
and whenever you are saying everything, like you are basically covering the whole the whole ground of works that we are doing and
Yep.
everything. So
Cool.
I kind of guessing that your overall approach to success is a holistic one. So
Yes.
what are some common barriers to achieving both prosperity and wellness, and how do you advocate overcoming them?
Well, first of all, I think we also need to define prosperity more holistically. So I think that's also where to start. And so again, going back to what's my why and what are my shoulds, thinking about prosperity in terms of like your psychological prosperity, which includes your emotional life as well, your financial, like, so most people think that prosperity is about financial and success, but you really can't get there without physical well-being, spiritual well-being, psychological well-being, because it's kind of the vehicle that gets you there. And there's that paradoxical effect. People think if you focus on one thing, that thing will happen. But really, if you focus on all the things, you have a better chance of getting there more successfully. So, first of all, thinking about prosperity more holistically, that you want to prioritize your mind, body, spirit along your road to success, whether it's financial or whether it's achieving certain life goals. And sorry, I forgot the second part of that question.
And how do you advocate overcoming those barriers?
Yeah, I think if we start with like being able to just define what is my definition of prosperity holistically, what am I aiming for, and then there inevitably will be barriers in life, and whether that be financial barriers, or maybe you're living in a different country away from your family, you don't have the social supports. Human beings have multiple barriers in their life, and so if as long as we kind of know where we're going and we know what we're kind of up against, we can then navigate with that. Like, for example, I didn't grow up in a family with money. We lived in poverty for a long time. And so I had to pay for my own university education. So my undergrad degree took way longer than everybody else who was able to go 4 years, because I had to stop and I had to work and I had to make some money, or I had to work full time while I was going to university. So that's how I dealt with a barrier. So I was born into a situation where my parents didn't have a lot of money, but I still wanted to go to university. So I knew where I was going. I knew my why. And so even though it took a long time, it was really important to keep all those aspects of prosperity, of where I was going, why I'm doing it, how do I stay healthy while I'm doing it. For example, I stepped out of university for a year sometimes so I could make some money, because it was just not healthy for me to keep working full time and going to school full time. So does that answer your question a little bit? Yeah.
Because whatever you are telling is a completely transformative experience. So you have
Yeah.
transformed yourself. You have transformed from one situation to another situation. So
Yeah.
that is kind of linked with our next question. It is like excellently connected with. Could you share how your workshops help participants align their career ambitions with their overall well-being goals? Like, how do you make these connections? Because it is in your live experience. So it
Yep.
will be very easy and practical and proactively you can do that.
Yeah.
So could you share how your workshops help in that front for your participants?
Yeah, I think because I worked for a long time with students, and so I think students are probably the hardest to convince that they need to really get to know themselves, and it's not just a singular goal. There's multiple things you need to focus on in your life. So, especially because I worked most of my career with post-secondary students, it's really starting off any kind of workshop or coaching or counseling is kind of what's in it for you as the individual. So really making it relevant to that person, their lived experience, their developmental stage in life. Because somebody who's 20 is very different developmentally than somebody who's 25. There's a lot of brain growth that happens at that time. So being able, I can see that you remember that. um, so yeah, there's really trying to appeal to someone's like their current lived experience to get them to buy into understanding their personality a bit better, working with who they are. That's a tough one because people think that they need to be someone else to be successful, when really it's just like, who am I? What do I like to do? What do I do naturally when I'm not getting paid to do it? What do I do naturally when I'm procrastinating? What am I naturally drawn to? Let's see if we can harness some of those skill sets just to really work with who you are. And that's kind of how we get around our barriers, kind of knowing our why, knowing who we are, like, and working with who we are is so important. Yeah.
When you're speaking, like I'm backtracking that there's a wheel turning in my brain. I'm just time traveling to that age, and I said it's so true. Like it's
Yeah.
so true. I wish I could have this conversation at that age. Well, I'd be turned out to be more successful. But fascinating that discovering your why and
Yeah.
discovering and trying to figure out who we are, because aligning
Yes.
these two will make a truly transformative experience for everyone. And most
Yes.
importantly, I think fulfilling careers. So
Say that
what
again. Sorry.
careers, like, oh yeah, fulfilling careers means what strategies do
Yeah.
you suggest for finding prosperity in one's career while also ensuring that these strategies contribute to their overall wellness and as well? Like, what are the strategies
Yes.
that you usually like? What are the caveats that you put in?
Yeah, especially when I work with students all the way to career professionals, and I work with a lot of healthcare and helping professionals and teachers. I work with a lot of people like that, and so I've worked with compassion fatigue, meaning like people who've just like their whole job every day is showing compassion and empathy. It's a lot, and so it's really again appealing to the person, what's in it for you, because there's a lot of shame in our society to think about yourself, and especially to think about yourself first. Thing is though, if you are a helper or a giver or somehow you are putting out lots for other people, you have to fill your own cup first. And so kind of getting people to shift their thinking around take care of myself so that I can take care of others, because there's that notion of selfishness, or I'm being self-centered, and it's like self-care is very important in anything that we do, and it doesn't mean selfish. It just means if you know yourself, you know what you need, you
Mhm.
can then start to, as you get a little older and a little more experience, you can start to ask for what you need or create scenarios at work, to be able to take breaks in your day, because you work better if you have even just a 15-minute break from something. So really going deep on who am I, how do I function best, am I a night owl, am I an early bird, when do I have most of my energy, what things do I love to do. Because we can also, if you're more of an introverted person, if you, and again, that doesn't mean shy, that just means that they process more internally, they think about things a lot before they put it out in the world. If they have to do a week long with people every day, they need to carve out some time. It's a priority for them to fill their social battery back up. So really, it's, without going into a whole 3-day workshop, it's like who you are. Let's really work with you, who you are, and not have a sense of shame is the goal. Is you got to take care of this before you can take care of anything else in the world.
Yeah, I really like the term compassion fatigue. And
Yes.
while you were saying, I work in I'm a college teacher. So, but
Oh, okay.
personally, I know that I'm an introvert person.
Okay.
So after every semester, I need at least a 1 week break. Like
Yes.
1 week break means I go far. Like in the wilderness, or
Yes.
in the place. Like Thousand Island is one of the most my favorite.
Oh,
Gananoque is a very small town. Yeah.
yes. Love that area.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I usually there are some of my friends are there. I just stay with them, and they know, they don't even bother me. So this 1 week is kind of recalibrating myself,
Yes.
because for the whole semester we are dealing with everything and dealing with the student issues and all. So it gives me that
Yeah.
space to recollect myself to
Yes.
everything and all. So it's so true. It's so true
Yes.
what you're saying. So thank you for sharing that. So, and
Yes.
as I'm in the higher education industry, in a
Hmm.
secondary tertiary industry of education, I will really interested to know, in the context of the new for example, CSA mental health standard and everything. So how can post-secondary institutions can foster an environment that supports both student success and well-being? Like, what are, from
Yeah.
the management perspective, authority perspective, we can do for the students? Can you please highlight?
Absolutely. I'm one of the writers for that CSA standard.
Mm.
And it's one of the first in the world. And I mean, right now we just met in Vancouver to talk a little bit more about what comes next, if we're going to revamp it a little bit to make it easier for campuses across Canada to implement. And so that's what we're going to be doing this year, because it was the first of its kind. And
Yeah.
with the first of its kind, it's always a little bit, we don't know how it's going to land. So we've got tremendous feedback. What's really cool is that across Canada, campuses are very interested in making a mentally healthy campus. So there is a commitment there.
Yeah.
And so really, I think at any university or college has to think about the well-being also of the staff,
Yeah.
because if the staff and faculty are taken care of and they're treated, respectfully, and mental health is also prioritized with the staff, it flows to the students, right? Because that the students interact with so many staff and faculty on a campus. And then starting to think about what's it like to be a student, because also we're falling in this developmental age that is very difficult in the brain. That's the last kind of push till we're 25 to develop our emotion regulation, our decision making, our cognitive flexibility, like seeing many options. It's like, so we throw a lot of young people into university and then say, make all the decisions for your whole life. And so it's a bit stressful.
Yeah.
And so I think that high caliber education can be alongside mentally healthy education.
Mm.
And so whether that's, really thinking about teaching students who have to do presentations in class, teaching them how to do it, not necessarily removing the presentation, because it's great for humans to push themselves outside their comfort zone a little bit, but to do it, to how you get there, doing it in a mentally healthy way. Throwing people into the deep end is that, the proverbial saying of just jump in the deep end, not usually helpful for the brain because it freaks out a bit. And
Yeah.
so there's many things to think about on a campus, like how things are taught, how they're delivered, how students interact with professors, how professors interact with students. Can we do things a little bit differently and still keep academic integrity? And I have spent my career working in post-secondary, and also, I've gone to school for a long time. I think you can do both quite easily, and academic integrity is not at all harmed. It's actually bolstered. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes, yes, yes. Perfect, perfectly. And it sounds so much sense whenever you are
Yeah.
talking in the context of the new CSA mental health standard, because in this time, people, as we are suffering more and more loneliness, especially in the
Oh,
urban
yeah,
centers and everything, it's
yeah,
it's kind of like in a, I should say, in an epic proportion,
yeah, it
specifically in
is.
the urban population. So we
Yeah.
need that. It was whenever it was announced as a mental standard, I said, about time. We
Yes.
need it. We need it.
Yes.
So
Yes.
from some of the,
Loneliness is harsh it's really harsh in the brain. We are social creatures, and
okay,
online is good, but it's a substitute. Yeah,
yeah,
we need social connection, meaningful social connection. Yes.
yeah, because for I think I have read somewhere, because for the more than 50,000 years we are designed, our brain is designed to
Yeah.
contact face to face. Now suddenly we
Yes.
are talking screen to screen. So it's become again that
Yeah.
compassion fatigue. You just Fantastic
Yeah.
phrase. I really love
Yes.
that phrase because in most of the professions, people are suffering. Some of the people are suffering from this. So it's really
Oh,
helpful.
yeah.
So back to the common
Absolutely.
people's ground again. So can you offer
Yep.
some actionable advice because you are a prolific coach and everything, and you contact across the population and all
Mhm.
straight off people. So can you offer some actionable advice how specifically it is for our readers can achieve
Yeah.
personal growth that leads
Yes.
to both prosperity and wellness?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I know this sounds, it depends on your lens in the world. Self-compassion is a very important place to start. So it really grows out of knowing who you are. It takes a while to accept who you are because that's just kind of the developmental arc, as we get to know each other. But really being compassionate toward ourselves and really starting to celebrate our uniqueness of each human being, regardless of whether they're part of a family or part of a culture or part of the world. We all have our own unique brand. And so and we also get a unique sense of circumstances. So that's kind of where I start with people. Let's work with your circumstances, your lived experience, and who you are. And then from there, we can calibrate what our expectations are. Like, for example, going back to my experience, I would love to have gone to university for straight 4 years when I got out of high school. It
Yeah.
wasn't the life I got. That was not the life I got in this world. So I had to calibrate my expectations. So it's
Yeah.
going to take me a little longer, but that I can't compare myself that maybe, from somebody from a wealthy family who had their life, covered and financially covered and supported to mine. Mine was different. So
Mm.
I had to do things differently. So that's a really hard area of coaching to get people to work with who they are
Yeah.
under the circumstances that they have and kind of calibrate their expectations, because there is a social comparison that is very strong in humans because we are socially connected and we need those connections, but we also compare how well we're doing compared to others. And so I have to kind of blend sometimes coaching with psychotherapy to kind of
Mm.
help with those pieces to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
because if we can just, because the thing is, I could have said no, I can't do a university degree, I didn't get that life, I could have just stopped, but then I wouldn't be where I am doing what I absolutely love for the last 28
For
years,
sure.
working in mental health. And so where are you going? I always ask people, where are you going? And we got to calibrate with your life and who you are on how we're going to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of understanding yourself, accept the reality and understand
Yeah.
yourself and being self-care and balance the
Yeah.
reality and your expectation without losing yourself.
Exactly. And that sounds, you said it so beautifully. And it is one of the hardest things for humans to do because of social comparison. Like, am I doing well?
Yeah.
So
One of my professor used to say, you have to have a clock and a compass without losing your head and heart.
oh, I love that. Yes.
So
Yes. It's the how. How
it's
do I
the
do
how,
that?
it's the how, it's the how, because
Yeah.
and you understand it so well because
Yeah.
it came from your life experience, and
Yeah.
you have seen probably the same kind of struggle, not in the nitty-gritty detail, but in the
Yeah.
same flavor in so many
Yeah.
people's life.
Oh yeah. Everyone has something that they're going through.
So
I know, and they're carrying some lived experience, some difficulties. Yeah, everyone has something, and I got to figure out what that is, and then
yeah,
help them.
so whenever you are speaking truth to your participants, it's not a
Yeah.
theoretical one, it's a practical one.
Nope. Yes, and it's
Because
a
yeah,
sorry, it's
please.
a passionate one too, because university education changed the trajectory of my life. So my passion drives my trying to find the how for that person. And it's not always easy, but I want other people to experience what I got to experience.
Yeah, yeah. And with that, like come to a very what do you say, relatable topic these days, technology.
Yeah.
So in your view, how can we use technology to enhance our prosperity
Yeah.
while also safeguarding our own health? How we can do
Yes.
that?
Okay, first of all, I'm just going to make a big statement. I love technology. I think technology is fantastic.
Mm.
But I think the problem is because it's so fantastic, people are very drawn to it. And I mean, the brain is very drawn to it. We get a dopamine response when we get rewards. I mean, it's a lot of good stuff. It's just using it more as a tool and an extension of ourselves, which means we have to intentionally put it down once in a while. Do a tech detox. Like you said, you go out to Gananoque, the Thousand Islands, I'm sure at that time you're in nature, you're doing a tech detox, you're not answering emails of students that you've been answering all semester.
Mm.
Yeah, getting back to this brain is about, scientists think this version is about 35,000 years old. It loves nature, social connection. It's used to exercise. So there's the thing we do need to get ourselves back into nature. We do need to get ourselves like a break from technology. Absolutely. So it's just, but it's intentional. I see the look on your face. What's going on for you?
No, like it's so resonating to my, like, I
Yes.
did it out of instinct, but you just
Yes.
made it so logical that I do
Oh,
it
thank
like,
you.
yeah, no, please, because sometimes I think that am I crazy or what? Then I say that
No,
no,
you're
I have
not.
to I have to recalibrate myself. Yes, please go ahead.
Well, and humans are not crazy. Humans are not broken. This brain really does respond to the current environment in a way that it knows best 35,000 years ago. Hence loneliness. If we're wired for social connection because that was a big part of our survival. If we got kicked out of our social group, we literally could die.
Right.
When we were more nomadic as human beings. So we're still wired, and that fight or flight response, it's really good in our modern day. If you're about to get hit by a bus, it isn't great, just for a deadline for work, or that sense of shame that you're going to be shunned fired from your job, kicked out of a social group, so forth. Like it's not necessarily the best fit for our modern society. So, but the beautiful part of the human brain is we can override that. It's just a lot of work, like going to the gym. We can't, I would love to be just amazingly fit from one time going to the gym, but that doesn't work. I have to be diligent about my physical health as well. Mental health, we need to start looking at it that way. We also don't know as much about mental health as it appears the way we talk about it. There
Okay.
isn't the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is the kind of like the manual for mental health. It's still very subjective. It's based on whether I think somebody's functioning or whether a test thinks somebody's functioning. So honestly, in my own practice, I just want to know someone's story, how they made sense of it, and what they did with it. And that's a more modern way of starting to look at our mental health, a little bit more like we react to our environment exactly how we're supposed to. It can be so painful, though, when our brain gets into a depressed state or an anxious state. But it was supposed to be painful so that we could get out of the state.
Yeah.
That's evolutionarily function. So your brain is doing what it's supposed to do, and there's lots of amazing things in this world, like your social connections, work that you're passionate about or feel like you can handle, your family support. Not so you don't always have to just go to a therapist. I mean, therapists are amazing,
Right.
but
No worries.
there's so many things: being in nature, detoxing from technology, exercise, healthy eating. This whole body is connected to the brain as well, so we got to look at ourselves more holistically. A little bit of a tangent, sorry.
No, no, it's all connected. It's all connected because
Yes.
as your
Yeah.
whole, as you want your participants, as you want your listeners, and obviously our readers, we want that
Yep.
they are successful holistically, not only
Yes.
financially. It should not be
Yes.
compartmentalized. It should be like a
No.
holistic, a whole. So that is why nothing
Yes.
is tangential, because everything is so connected. So
Yes,
I'm
it
just
is.
taking notes. I'm like my iPad screen is very busy these days during every interviews, because I'm whenever you're saying something, I'm taking a note, because we will try to put these lines in between the interviews and everything. So lastly, what self-care strategies, because self-care, according to
Yeah.
your conversation, is a very big thing for you, and it is should be a big thing for everyone, because self-care, we have to take self-care. So what
Yeah.
self-care strategies do you recommend that not only nurture health, but
Yeah.
also contributes to one's prosperity? Again, the holistic one. So, what are the exact self care
Yeah.
strategies you suggest to our readers?
Well, I think that first and foremost, like you said, we need to look at our mind and our body, or our brain and our body, as connected, because we're not, our brain is not separate from the body. We're very aware of it when we look at another human being. It's all connected. We have to think of our brain that way. There's a common narrative that, mental illness, mental disorder, there's a lot of discussion and contention within my field on whether we should do the medical approach or whether we should do other approaches, more biopsychosocial approaches. So really self-care has to start from your mindset around mental health. You're not broken. You're reacting to your environment, and be curious. So that's where mindfulness comes in. Being curious about, wow, like I'm getting a lot more tension headaches, or I'm really feeling like I can't think through things. Like I don't have a lot of clarity. I'm feeling my chest is really tight all the time, like more of like a fight or flight or an anxious response. Like just being curious, because you're reacting consciously or unconsciously to your environment. Your brain is doing exactly what it should be doing. So I think starting with that mindfulness, paying attention to how your tells. I always call it to my clients your tells. Like if you're frustrated, well, what's that about? There's something going on for you. And I talk a lot about primary and
story.
There's a story that gets there. And so knowing that this brain is about 35,000 years old, it's still very evolutionary, and it reacts to things to keep you alive. So yeah, so it's threat assessment all the time. Is this going to hurt me? Is this going to hurt me? But the beautiful part of how this brain, it's very adaptable. It hasn't evolved very much, but it's very adaptable. And so what I try to tell people or work with people is that you just have to make a commitment to yourself that I will live a balanced life, that prosperity means more than money to me. I will examine my shoulds. I will know my why. And there's this really cool technique by Dr. Rick Hanson, amazing neuropsychologist. He wrote the book Hardwiring Happiness. And I would say of all the books I could recommend that is very kind of client-centered, easy and approachable to read, I would recommend Hardwiring Happiness. He has this technique called HEAL, have a positive experience, enhance the positive experience, absorb the positive experience, link the positive experience. And what that does beautifully is it helps our brain that just wants to do the negativity bias, like what's wrong, looking for threats. It helps us wire in the positive. That's why sometimes people can get very tunnel vision, where they all they see is the terrible things. The human brain does that really well, because your brain's trying to keep it like hyper vigilant. We got to wire in, and it's hard work, but after a while, once you've had a positive experience, and then you enhance it, meaning you can just sit with it, recall it, enhance it. Like, who was there? What did it sound like? What did it smell like? How did I feel? Like, bring in all the information. And then when I lead clients through the absorb part, and I get them to walk around in it. Just walk around in it and then see if you can see it from different angles. You're just living in this experience. And then sometimes I don't always do this part. It depends on where they're at. I link it to a negative experience, because the negative's there already. So we want to wire it together. And so essentially you bring up the negative experience and then shift back to the positive. Bring up the negative one, shift back to the positive a couple times. And then what ends up happening is whatever in our brain fires together, neurons that fire together, wire together. So basically what you're trying to do is the negative's coming up anyway, so you may as well have some positive that comes up with it. So our life lens is a little bit more holistic. And so that's essentially self-care, being in nature, exercising, eating well. That keeps pulling your life lens out so that you see more than just the threat assessment.
Fantastic. Listening to all those, hopefully our readers will get an excellent view of that. And Dr. Heather, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Oh, so wonderful to be with you today, and you're a wonderful interviewer. I'm sure your students love you.
Thank you.